Okay, I believe we should have Kit Wallach with us. Kit, are you there?
I am. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties.
That's no problem. Thank you for giving me time.
So if you could just let us know if you're testifying on behalf of any organization and what bill you're testifying on, and then you can go right ahead.
Absolutely. I'm testifying on behalf of myself in support of Senate Bill 468. Okay. In 2 weeks, I'm going to go to my second annual ophthalmologist's appointment to check for evidence of diabetic retinopathy. I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes in January of 2020, a few months before the arrival of COVID-19 in our community, and in that short window of time, I learned a great deal from the new doctors I was going to visit. When cells in the body become resistant to insulin, they don't clear glucose from the blood as much or as quickly, so it stays in the bloodstream at elevated levels. This is especially hard on our tiniest blood vessels, the little capillaries that serve to furnish oxygen to our organs and our extremities. I picture the finest spray of a bouquet of baby's breath, tiny forking conduits carrying nourishing blood cells into the crucial tissue of our kidneys, our fingers, our eyes. High blood glucose makes these tiny branching blood vessels wither and die. My doctor explained that he was checking my retinas, the thinner than paper tissue at the back of my eyes, because whatever was going on there was going on all over my body. If the capillaries there looked compromised, it wouldn't only be a harbinger of blindness, not only. It would mean my other organs were simply starved of oxygen. My kidneys, my nerve endings, my skin, my heart. We caught my diabetes early. No evidence yet of diabetic retinopathy. And I'm going to this year's appointment with anxious optimism. Anxious because I'm always anxious, and optimism because with the help of medication and significant attention to my diet, I've been able to get and keep my blood sugar levels under control. I'm hopeful. I won't go blind, won't require dialysis or amputation of my toes. My hope comes from the money I am able to spend on medication and food. These days, my budget after housing is almost entirely groceries, local fish and lean local meat and fresh organic produce. I'm a homeowner with a big yard, and in the summers I am able to plant and keep a vegetable garden. In the context of our current system, this feels like the ultimate luxury. I can afford hope. I can afford to cling to my good health. I am one of the few. I find the disparity between my experience and the most typical outcomes for people who share my diagnosis to be unconscionable. Senators DeMario, Coleman, and Valverde, thank you for your sponsorship of Bill 468. To the rest of this committee, please help bring justice and equity to the food supply in Rhode Island by fighting to pass Bill 468. It's personal to me. And I'm going to take the way you vote personally. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your personal testimony. We really appreciate your story. Take care. Okay, next I believe we have Susan Kelly. Susan?
Yes, hi, how are you?
I'm doing well, Susan. If you could just let us know if you're testifying on behalf of any organization and which bill you're going to testify on, and then you can go right ahead with your comments.
Thank you so much. My name is Sue Kelly. I live in Cranston. I am testifying in support of Bill 468. I have only lived in Rhode Island for a little over a year. I arrived during the coronavirus crisis and therefore don't know enough about the state, but here's what I've seen. I moved here from West Virginia, where the legislators' disregard of its people led to the destruction of our water sources. Our air is poisoned, our soil is poisoned, people are getting cancer like mad, and that's all from fracking. If what I'm hearing is correct, and 25% of Rhode Island citizens are experiencing food anxiety. That is terrifying to me, and that is unconscionable. This bill provides a new way of thinking, and a new way of attacking a problem that is pervasive in the state. It is providing a way to cut pollution. It is providing a way to reduce the amount of poisonous food that goes into people's bodies. It is something that seems to me to be what we need in this very much crisis situation. It is a climate crisis. We are on crisis footing right now at so many levels. And thinking that, like West Virginia, if we stay with coal, if we stay with the way we've been doing things, oh boy, let's do oil and gas, because there's no other way to think. We will not thrive as a state. We will not help our people. What I would like to see a legislative body do is actually stand up and fight for the people. And this bill provides that opportunity. And as others have said, I'm watching, I watch this committee say they support this bill, and yet it's not on the floor to be voted on. It's going to go, for further study. No, people are dying. People are suffering from food anxiety. Our children are suffering. It can't be put off. This isn't something that we can be casual about, or we can say, well, let's do something next year. No. The time is now. This helps the climate crisis. This helps the people of Rhode Island. People of Rhode Island should come first before anything else.
Susan, we're just about at 3 minutes, so if you can just wrap up your testimony, thank you.
I think you've got it. I'm going to fight for the election of people who know how to stand up. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Susan, and I appreciate you advocating on behalf of your newly adopted state.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care. Have a good night. Okay, now I believe we have Catherine Hillary. Catherine, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hi, Catherine. If you could just introduce yourself and let us know if you are testifying on behalf of any organization and what bill you're testifying on, and then you can go right ahead with your remarks.
Thank you so much. Hello to my Newport neighbor and Senator Don Oyer, and to the rest of the committee. My name is Catherine Hillary, and on behalf of 1 out of every 4 Rhode Islanders who are food insecure, and for all those of us who demand that the needs of our communities be met over the needs of giant industrialized agribusiness, I stand up in favor of the Food Bill S-468, part of the Rescue Rhode Island Act. We as a country have been struggling very earnestly to find ways to bridge the terrible divide in this country and this state, and this bill provides an opportunity to do just that. Common healthy purpose brings people together of all ages and all political outlooks. The bill calls for the establishment of community-based land trusts to establish our own food chains and to cut ties with the interstate commerce of industrialized agribusiness. This would help with our already set goal of reducing carbon emissions and help get us to our goal of net zero by 2050. This bill will bring people together in common purpose, address climate change, improve our diets, and address joblessness and hunger. Children with full stomachs will be able to concentrate on their studies, and as such, we will be providing a more healthy, educated workforce for the future. The job gap left by the loss of our manufacturing jobs and the pandemic would be significantly filled with the opportunities for not only food production, but remediation of the damage done to our soil, our forests, fields, wetlands, and coastlines. One final word. I am sure that the majority of our Senate and the majority of our House are very concerned about the terrible division in our country and in our state, especially in the last 4 years. to support this community-based bill will bring people together in common purpose and to help build urgent support for protecting our democracy in future elections. I respectfully ask that you move Bill S-468 to the floor of the Senate for a full and robust discussion and vote, and that you be more cognizant of and more respectful of the strength of the coalition of very earnest, committed workers behind it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Okay, next I believe we have Monica Huertas. Monica, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can, Monica. If you can just let us know if you're testifying on behalf of any organization and what bill you're testifying on, and then you can go right ahead with your remarks.
Sure. My name is Monica Huertas, and I am here testifying on Bill 468. I am co-chair of Renew Rhode Island, and I'm founding member of the Racial Environmental Justice Committee. I'm also director of the Green Racial Environmental Justice Committee. I live in Washington Park, and I'm here testifying on behalf of my 13-year-old self and all the black and brown and poor white children of Rhode Island. This bill will begin building our new food system by developing a network of community land trusts in low and moderate income communities throughout the state that will pay workers fair wages to produce local food in sustainable ways. These community land trusts will be democratically controlled by their local communities, which will decide what kind of food to grow and how to distribute it. Let me tell you a little bit of why food justice is so important to me. I grew up in the city of Providence as a homeless youth. I spent days at the Traveler's Aid and my nights up in the shelter called Welcome Arnold. During these difficult times, the easiest and cheapest meals that were available to me were from the 7-Eleven. I ask you to please use your imagination and think about how you would feel physically, mentally, and emotionally if all you had for breakfast, lunch, and dinner when you got it were 7-Eleven hot dogs and pizza. My brothers and I also witnessed my mother sell her plasma for $10 so that she can purchase one plate of Chinese food. Yes, she worked full-time. My brother, who joined the United States Army and served several tours in Iraq, was 18 years old and weighed 98 pounds. He is an American citizen living in the richest country in the world, was malnourished. His recruiter bought us MREs so that he can gain weight. Imagine that, a malnourished kid in America, in Rhode Island, right here in Providence. Unfortunately, not much has changed since then. Kids are in dire need of good quality food now. We need bold transformation of the entire food system here in Rhode Island. Right now, in front of you, you have a bill that would take a giant step towards addressing the appalling crisis of food insecurity and malnutrition in our state. A bill which could address the extreme and terrifying levels of hunger while simultaneously decarbonizing our food system by localizing agriculture production. It is painful and shameful that this bill has been put to hold for further study to effectively kill it before even hearing the testimony of the people who would be impacted by this bill. I beg that you truly listen to the most impacted members of our community. This legislation is a matter of life and death for us. We need you to vote that way. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony, Monica. I appreciate it. Okay, I believe we should have Michael Carney with us. Michael, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hi, Michael. If you could just let us know if you're testifying on behalf of any organization and also which bill you plan on testifying about, and then you can go ahead with your remarks.
Sure, thank you. So my name is Michael Carney. I live on South Main Street in Providence. I'm representing myself, and I'm calling in support of Senate Bill 468. First, I just want to thank Senators Coleman and DeMario for your courage and support of this legislation. And before I begin my testimony, a few other people have said that Senator Valverde sponsored the bill, which I don't believe the case. I'm just wondering if the senator could clarify whether she sponsored and supports the bill in addition to the green justice zones, and if she will vote yes on it.
I think that the best course of action would be to contact Senator Valverde offline, or I will give her the opportunity to make remarks after your testimony, but why don't you go ahead with testifying on the bill?
Okay, got it. Thank you. So my grandfather's name was Bill Rigo. He grew up farming on what is now Rigo Road in Middletown, just outside of Senator Oyer's district. And along with the other farms in Middletown, his family farm provided fresh vegetables and meat to Newport and Aquidneck Island. My grandfather's family was very poor, but they always had enough healthy food to eat because of a local, resilient, regenerative food system that prioritized people and an agricultural community that supported each other. I find strong issue with Senator Rogers' comment earlier this evening that, and I quote, "There will never be farming in Rhode Island." That's not true. There always has been, and my family was a part of it. We had a fresh, local, sustainable food system and farms in Rhode Island before we exported our food system to out-of-state big ag, which exploits workers, the environment, and Rhode Islanders' health for corporate profit. But we can rebuild a fresh, sustainable local food system anew by passing this bill. I will never forget when my grandfather told me about the 1938 hurricane. He was 10. As he was walking home from school, the rain began to fall and the winds began to rage. As he went to bed, he thought the roof would blow off. And when he woke in the morning, he looked outside and saw dozens and dozens and dozens of bodies laying drowned in Bailey Brook. His neighbors, his friends, their parents, men, women, and children younger than him, lying dead in the brook. We know that hurricanes and extreme weather events have only gone stronger and more deadly since 1938 because of climate change. We cannot change the past or present, but we can change the future. We can decarbonize and create a food system based in science and justice, and we can decarbonize our whole economy. And if we do it in the next 9 years, we can ensure a healthy, livable, just future for all Rhode Islanders, instead of rising seas and yearly deadly storms causing untold human deaths and suffering and billions of dollars of damage, orders of magnitude higher than the cost of this bill. Earlier tonight, Senator Archambault called the testifier arrogant for demanding a solution to the climate and food crisis. What I think is arrogant is that this committee voted to hold a quarter of Rhode Island kids going hungry for
Mr. Kearney, I'm just going to remind you again that we had kind of established the guidelines that we were going to stick to really talking about the merits of the bill itself. If you have any further testimony to give on the bill, I'd be happy to hear it. But otherwise, I believe, Senator Rogers, did you want to make a statement?
I'm almost done, and I'll keep it to the merits of the bill.
I believe I have the floor right now, sir. I was mentioned that I said that Rhode Island would never have any farms. That's an absolute mistruth of what I said. I will embellish and explain. I said it is difficult to have farms in the state of Rhode Island. In 1990, I was a young teenager, well, a little older, a teenager, and I had the opportunity to take over the herd that my father created along with me and my family. And watching how they struggled on 65 cows and went further and further and further in debt, I made the decision to not take over the farm. And it was a sad day in 1990 when 60 of the 65 cows, 5 were called out for slaughter, and 60 cows went to an Amish family in Pennsylvania. And thank God I did that, because I still hold this farm today. That if I didn't make that hard decision to say no to my parents, that I couldn't go on with this, something we had done on this land for 40 years, I wouldn't be sitting here today. I farmed this land. I can tell you, it's not that easy to pay for the property taxes and maintain this farm. There's a reason why these big farms have taken place of the farm that I used to be brought on, and I still have. And I like how people come in who've never farmed in their life, and I've been doing it to this day. I still hold farm status, and I still work very hard at it. It's not as easy as you think. Everybody comes in and thinks they have the answer. I live it, I walk it, and I breathe it. And to discredit where I'm coming from and misrepresent what I said is a disservice that the knowledge that I can help these people with on the ideas that will help implement. Like I said in the beginning, We agree on the problem. How we get there is what needs to be discussed. And that's why we hold bills to be held for further study, to take the knowledge from many sides and create something that will work instead of letting it out, knowing that it great possibly will fail. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Senator Rogers.
Continue my testimony. Can I finish my testimony?
Mr. Carney, you were at your time when I went to Senator Rogers, so thank you very much for participating. Okay, next I believe we have Nathan Daly. Nathan, are you with us?
Yes, hello.
Hi, Nathan. So you can go ahead and introduce yourself and let us know if you're testifying on behalf of any organization, which bill you're testifying on, and then you can go right ahead into your remarks.
Okay. All right. Hi, my name is Nathan Daly, and I am testifying for myself in strong support of S468, the food bill. Okay, so I'm here because we have been asking you, our government, to act to stop climate change for decades, longer than anyone in this office has been in office. The fact that you haven't done so is a reflection of your lack of commitment to us and to our futures. We have been asking you, our government, to act to stop the racist and inequitable effects of climate change and polluting industries on our families, our neighbors, our loved ones for decades. The fact that you haven't done so is a reflection of your indifference and greed. Enough is enough. The Renew Rhode Island Act is the first piece of real, ambitious legislation to reach the Rhode Island legislature that actually addresses the problems, the twin problems of climate change and climate injustice, at a scale that match the problem. You're finally seeing this before you now because so many people, young and old, but especially so many young people, have decided enough is enough, and we have fought hard this last year to elect the legislators who are committed to making this happen. And the food bill is a major piece of that. Creating sustainable, meaningful jobs that empower our citizens to fight for sustainable food production has to be a part of our climate solution. And ensuring fair, even distributed access to that food is a necessary part of climate justice. It is unacceptable to ignore our neighbors as they ask for breathable air, drinkable water, affordable housing, and healthy food, these basic requests. We cannot allow there to continue to be two Americas, the one lived by white and wealthy Americans and the one lived by poor Americans, Black Americans, Indigenous Americans, and Americans of color. Every person demands the right to these basic necessities, and what an amazing opportunity it is that we can address those needs in a way that simultaneously empowers us to fight back against the climate disaster. We have to rebuild our economy, we have to rebuild our food production, and we have to rebuild our lives if we're going to avoid climate doom. And we have to seize this opportunity to rebuild the world, to do it in a fair and just way. The people I mentioned above are awake, we're here, and this movement is growing, and it's not going to stop. We're going to win. The only question is if you will be there with us to join in that victory. I hope so. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daly. I believe with us next we have Scott Burton. Scott, are you there?
Yes, hi.
Hi, Scott. If you could just introduce yourself, let us know if you're testifying on behalf of any particular organization, which bill you're testifying on, and then you can go right ahead into your remarks.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, my name is Scott Burton. I'm just testifying pro the S0468 bill for the state of Rhode Island. I was researching the bill and really think it's just a pretty great kind of step in the right direction in terms of community agriculture and giving kind of the community more of help in terms of, you know, developing self-sufficiency in terms of gardening and helping lower income individuals with their self-sufficiency in terms of feeding themselves. And yeah, I also think that I think the community agricultural groups and community building is also a very important aspect of it, and having the kind of expert consensus, experts to give their kind of knowledge to people learning how to support themselves and grow their own food is very important. So that was kind of my entire thing. I think it's a great bill.
Thank you so much for calling in to express your support. Have a good night.
I appreciate it. Bye.
I believe next with us we have Kayla Krupa. Kayla, are you there? Kayla? All right, just give us 1 second. Okay, let's try that again. Kayla Krupa, are you with us?
Yes. Sorry if it sounded like static before.
No, that's okay. It happens sometimes. So Kayla, you're on with the Environment and Agriculture Committee. If you could just introduce yourself and let us know if you are testifying on behalf of any particular organization, which bill you'd like to speak on, and then you can go right ahead into your remarks.
Hi, I'm Kayla Krupa, testifying on behalf of myself, and I'm a high schooler from Foster coming here to testify in support of Senate Bill 468. Some of us go along with our lives, never really thinking about how we're going to get food or when, but many of us aren't so fortunate, and many Rhode Islanders struggle to afford food when they need it. The Rhode Island Community Food Bank found that 1 in 4 Rhode Island households struggle from food insecurity. From my own perspective, I constantly see students who get their only source of food from schools. It makes me so concerned to think what happens when they don't go to school, what happens when a student lives 20 or more minutes from a grocery store or the school and they can't get to either. What happens to the parents who don't get food at all? Moreover, the supply chain for food is fundamentally broken. We're in the middle of a full-blown climate crisis, and the amount of fossil fuels and waste that comes from the food supply chain contributes to that issue. And to add insult to injury, the system doesn't even support its workers to the full extent of their hard work and labor. So, we need to rejuvenate and reshape our food system to cater to the people of Rhode Island. Developing land trusts that produce sustainably sourced food and subsidizing sustainable farms is key to bringing jobs to Rhode Island and making environmentally safe agriculture a no-brainer. We don't need to be reliant on damaging practices and long-distance sources. Rhode Island has resources, and we should use them safely and sustainably. I come from an area of the state where many people own small-scale farms. I can walk just a few minutes to pick up eggs and some produce. I know where the food is coming from, and I know that these farmers treat their land and animals with love. I want more people to have the opportunity to do the same. Access to food is a right, not a privilege, and it should be treated as such. Thank you all for your time, and I hope you will take into consideration my opinion as a soon-to-be voter and resident of rural Rhode Island.
Thank you so much for calling in, Kayla. Have a good night.
You too.
Next, we have Nathan Scarborough. Nathan, are you there?
I am.
Hi, Nathan. If you could just introduce yourself, let us know if you are testifying on behalf of any particular organization, which bill you'd like to testify on, and then you can go right ahead into your remarks.
Gladly. I'm Nathan Scarborough, and I'll be testifying on behalf of myself in support of Bill 468. Senators, right now, the food industry manages to harm the environment, in multiple ways while still exploiting workers and even failing to feed everyone who needs it. These are three major shortcomings, all of which this legislation will work to fix. It's a win-win-win instead of a lose-lose-lose. I myself, along with many of you, am someone who has never really had to worry about getting fresh food. Despite the rather large portion of my family's income that it cuts out, I've never really had to think about it. I say this because even though it's hard for me and people like me to understand the struggles through which some families need to go just to put ethically grown food on their tables, I can still have the common sense to work to change that struggle. No one should have to work that hard to survive without aiding the exploitation of workers, just to put food on their tables. It's a phrase used a lot, and it's beginning to sound cliche. Why? Because it's such a widespread issue. You hear it all the time because it's ridiculous that some people spend less than 0.5% of their income on healthy food, while others can't afford it, along with other absolute necessities. And you personally have a chance to change that. If you don't pass this legislation, not only will you be directly abandoning the needs of your constituents, but you'll create a name for yourself which less privileged voters will never consider on the ballot. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. We should have Ellen with us. Ellen, if you want to introduce yourself to the committee, let us know if you're testifying on behalf of an organization and what bill you're testifying on, and you can go ahead with your testimony.
Thank you so much. My name is Ellen Quadgrass. I am testifying on my own behalf. I am a resident of North Kingstown, Rhode Island, and a Unitarian Universalist minister serving a congregation in East Greenwich, Rhode Island, and I'm calling in to support Bill S-468. I support this bill because it is part of resolving a much larger infrastructure problem. We are not currently living, farming, or eating sustainably. We are shipping food from out of state using polluting fossil fuels. We are exploiting migrant labor, and we are not making use of the people power we have right here in Rhode Island. We can change that, and we can do it here. If we do it, we can motivate others in other parts of the country to do it too. This bill will help us address an important piece of the environmental puzzle while creating safe, decent, healthy jobs for people who desperately need them. As a minister, I get calls from people all the time who are destitute due to the systemic problems that you can help fix. These new initiatives can play an important part in helping improve our systems, support our people, and save our planet, and so I hope you will support it. I know that more and more of us are waking up to the urgency and to our own agency. More of us are waking up to the need to support candidates who support policies that benefit us all. I do hope that you will do the right thing for the people of this state and for our collective future. Thank you so much for your service to the state.
Thank you for your testimony. I believe we should have Peter with us on the line. Peter, if you want to go ahead, introduce yourself, let us know if you're working with an organization and also what bill you're testifying on, and you can go ahead with your testimony.
Yes, hello.
Yeah, also I just wanted to say there is a little bit of background noise, so I'm not sure if there's anywhere you can move to make that a little bit better.
Can you hear me better now?
I absolutely can, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Hi, my name is Peter Schaefer. I'm a resident of Providence. Apologies for had to run back and get some notes. Yes, I'm testifying in support of Senate Bill 21-468 for food. I'm in support of this bill because I have experience from this past summer of organizing in support of a candidate in Rhode Island and talking to a man at his door. And this man telling me that he didn't care about politics, about elections, that he felt that government didn't represent and support him. And that experience made me realize that our government doesn't do enough to support people's basic needs. Basic needs like housing, basic needs like food, clean air and water. You know, I think this bill is so important for our state because it provides some of that basic needs, local foods in our community, provides funding for these basic needs to allow farmers to get started in our state. I'm sure many of the legislators on the committee have experienced before people like the man I talked to last summer who is not heard, who does not have a voice in politics, who feels like government doesn't do enough for him. And I encourage the senators on the committee to support this legislation because it'll make those people feel heard again, feel like their government cares for them again. I have experience doing political organizing work, and I tell representatives, senators on the committee that if you don't support this legislation, I am ready to help canvass. I'm ready to help find candidates to run against you. And I'm ready to help create a Rhode Island in which that man is heard by his officials, in which that man is heard by his government. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to testify in support of this legislation. And I encourage each and every senator on the committee to vote in support of passing this bill out of committee and into a vote on the floor. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. I believe we should have Karen on with us. Karen, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to the committee and let us know.
Yes.
Hello, go ahead, Karen.
Sorry. Hi, my name is Karen Ramretnam, and I'm here to express my support on behalf of myself of Senate Bill 468 and the others in the Rescue Rhode Island Act. And I'm testifying on behalf of myself. I'm 16 years old, and I'm a first-gen Asian American and high school junior, and I work share at a grassroots, no pun intended, community-focused farm in Tiverton, where I've lived all my life, growing up alongside farmlands that have become increasingly converted to wedding venues, as farmers in my town have become entangled in a lot of agricultural issues that have arisen in the last years. And it's become nearly impossible for many farmers to compete with the corporations, bringing in produce from thousands of miles away in places that shamefully have the same climate as our community. And in my opinion, we really need leaders to support localized food production, something that the food bill would bring to our state. And this bill would change the fact that 1% of the food eaten in Rhode Island is actually grown in our state, according to the Relish Rhody Food Strategy draft of 2017. And as you probably know, when the Relish Rhody government plan was announced, there were so many programs within that initiative and a promise that Rhode Island would undergo a reduction of food insecurity from 12.8% to 10% by 2020. And it's 2021, and our food insecurity crisis has become elevated as a result of the pandemic. And I'm really, really excited for this bill to connect and continue the effort of regenerative agricultural practices and subsidies for chemical-free farming that will have long-lasting change for our state. And also during this pandemic, the empty supermarket shelves that I saw for the first time had made visible to me our lack of resilience within the food system. And I know that with the passing of the food bill, Rhode Island will not only be on the path to solve our food insecurity crisis, but establish long-term systemic change in the agricultural and economic realm that will make us more resistant to pandemics that could increase in the future with climate change. And by creating sustainable community land trusts, we will also be able to strengthen our economy, and Rhode Island can be a beacon of climate justice so everyone can thrive. And again, I really urge you to pass this bill. Right now, all I have are 3 minutes, and in 2 years, I'll be able to vote, and in 14 years, I'll be able to run for office myself. However, right now, my future and the future of my generation of Rhode Islanders is in your hands, and I wish to do a good job with the same initiative when your future is in my hands one day. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. And I believe that Joel is joining us. Joel, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to the committee and let us know if you're working with the group and what bill you're testifying on, and you can go ahead with your testimony.
Thank you, Chair Oyer and members of the committee. My name is Joel Gates. I'm a resident of Gloucester, Rhode Island. I'm testifying on behalf of myself today in support of S468. I just wanted to talk about our broken agricultural system. I watched a movie documentary the other day called Kiss the Ground, and I highly recommend it, and hope everybody can watch that film. The film explores our treatment of farmland, and for years chemical companies have been telling and maybe forcing farmers to use their products, and these pesticides and chemical fertilizers are degrading the soil and basically killing the balanced ecosystem that should be growing our food. Besides becoming less fertile, the soil is losing its ability to sequester carbon. If we just change our agricultural practices to a more regenerative system, then we can grow better, healthier, and more diverse food, as well as sequester carbon, which will help in our battle against climate change. Please pass this bill out of committee and support it in the full Senate. Thank you very much for giving me a chance to testify.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony.
Bye now.
And I believe now we have AJ Braverman on with us. AJ, if you want to let us introduce yourself to the committee, let us know if you're working with the organization and what bill you're testifying on, you can go ahead with your testimony.
Yes, my name is AJ. I live in Providence. I'm testifying in my individual capacity, and I am testifying in strong support of S468. I grew up in Vermont, and when my family needed eggs, I used to walk up the road to my neighbors, the Nicholsons, who would sell us a dozen fresh eggs, often still warm, for just a few dollars. I used to get my vegetables from my backyard, a CSA, or from Liz down the road. Liz, the generous soul that she is, would leave extra vegetables from her garden in a box outside her driveway for free for any neighbors who wanted them. My parents had stable, good-paying jobs. I knew I'd probably never go hungry because they couldn't afford to buy groceries, but I also knew that if anything ever did happen, that my community would feed me. Now I live in Providence, where fresh eggs are sold at a farmer's market for 2 to 3 times the price my neighbor would sell them to us, inaccessible to many Rhode Islanders. There aren't boxes where people in the community can pick up vegetables for free, but if there were, they'd certainly be used by thousands who need them. The groceries that I buy are mostly shipped around the country or around the globe. They're produced using violent labor practices, and they're grown using pesticides that poison our air, soil, and water. We can change all of this. We can have food security for everyone. I deeply, deeply love Providence. I love my neighbors. I love my community. I love the way that people desperately want to take care of each other. But we simply can't do it enough on our own. We need your help. We need the state's resources, our resources, which we grant you the power to distribute. We can build communities where there is fresh, healthy, and affordable food for everyone, where no one goes hungry, and we can do it by passing this legislation. Or you can choose not to pass this legislation. If you choose to do that, you will be sending a message to Rhode Islanders that fresh and healthy food is only for the wealthy. That the food insecurity crisis staring you in the face is not a priority, and that the violence of our current food system is acceptable to you. Senator Oyer and the members of the committee, if you don't support this legislation, if you believe eating should continue to be a privilege, then you are failing our state. At the beginning of this hearing, you held the bill for further study, putting the power to bring it to a vote in unilateral control of Senate leadership. You queued it up to be killed silently. And what many who have testified tonight have demonstrated is that that will not be allowed to happen. I'm an organizer, and in the last year, I've recruited hundreds of volunteers to make phone calls and knock doors for progressive candidates.
That's 3 minutes, Mr. Braverman.
All right, I just would like to finish real quick. To Senator Hoyer, your CRMC votes and now this vote to hold the Rescue Rhode Island Act for further study have made it clear what side you're on. Environmentalism can't just be for the white and wealthy. You have time to change your mind to support this bill, to be an environmental champion for everyone. But if you don't, I will find a challenger for you. I will make sure they're well-resourced and staffed.
Thank you.
You will lose your next election.
Thank you, AJ. You've gone over your 3 minutes. Thank you. I believe we have the next caller. I believe Isabel is with us. Isabel, are you there?
Yep, can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine, thank you. If you can introduce yourself to the committee and let us know what bill you're testifying on and if you're testifying with an organization, and you can go ahead and give your testimony.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name is Isabel Long, and I live in Little Compton, Rhode Island. I'm testifying on behalf of myself in support of Bill S-468 because I believe that Rhode Island has a moral imperative to help mitigate the effects of climate change and ensure that every Rhode Islander has good food to eat. I grew up in Tiverton on a small family farm run by my parents, and I can vividly remember that most of my childhood consisted of collecting eggs from our free-range chickens and nursing baby goats back to health. I was raised in a home in a community that respected farmers and their way of life. Farmers are going out of business here in Rhode Island because they simply can't compete with the low prices of the lower quality food that gets imported from out of state. Let me tell you, you get what you pay for when it comes to food. Anyone who has ever had a farm fresh egg will tell you that. But with good quality food comes higher prices, and that's not okay either. Bill 468 addresses both of these issues. This bill will ensure that Rhode Island invests in climate-conscious, local sustainable farms and community gardens so that we can grow good and healthy food here while providing good jobs. This bill also will provide vouchers so everyone can afford the food we grow right here. Every Rhode Islander deserves good, healthy, local food. Lastly, let me be clear. I am young and I am ready to fight for climate justice, and I'm a huge fan of democracy. If this legislation is not passed, as it clearly needs to be, I will make sure that every legislator participating in this hearing who votes no will lose their seat in 2022. This is not a threat, but a promise. I know that I am very privileged as someone from an upper middle class background, and I do truly have the time to dedicate to ensure that those elected in 2022 are real progressives. And if you don't want that to happen, why don't you actually start voting in your constituents' interests? I'm sure you remember what happened in 2020. Establishment Democrats lost their seat to progressives. Get ready.
Thank you, Isabel.
Thank you.
Next, we have a member of the public who did want to testify, who's a member of the deaf community, and unfortunately, the technological setup that we have doesn't allow for us to get calls from the TTY system or to get a live sign language interpreter, which is an issue that I have raised with leadership because I know this issue also came up on an earlier committee hearing. So it's an unfortunate result of the kind of way that we have to patch people into the system that also prohibits us from getting the live sign language interpretation that would have been possible had we were all doing video testimony. So with that being said, we did want to have the opportunity for the member of the public to have their testimony read into the record. And so the clerk is going to read the letter from Timothy Riker that our staff worked with them and an interpreter to provide to us tonight.
Madam Chairwoman Hoyer, as a resident and registered voter in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, I wish to express my support for S-468, the Agriculture Jobs Bureau Act. If passed, this will create a regenerative agriculture program which will award grants to Rhode Island residents, creating jobs and increasing access to healthy food that is locally and sustainably grown. People with disabilities are often the first to feel the impact of an economic downturn and the last to recover from it. The comorbidities of disabilities and other health conditions like obesity, diabetes, and health disease are exacerbated by social determinants of health such as nutrition, housing quality, employment, and the environment. As a second-generation deaf person living with type 2 diabetes caused by years of poor nutrition, I understand firsthand how important it is for all Rhode Islanders to have access to healthy, locally, and sustainably grown food. Now I am a homeowner and have a job that pays a decent salary, which makes it possible for me to afford healthier food and reverse the complications of type 2 diabetes. However, I have worked with people with disabilities for most of my adult life, many who are black and brown, and witnessed how challenging it is for people in poverty to access food that nourishes their bodies, sustains their health, and allows ecosystems to thrive. When people live in areas where there are food deserts, they are left with limited choices such as convenience stores, gas stations, and fast food restaurants to buy whatever food is available, often at the expense of their own health. I know what this is like because I have lived through this during part of my adult life and lost my deaf father who died young because of health disparities. This cycle of people living in poverty buying food with poor nutrients needs to be disrupted with something that is healthier, more accessible, and sustainable for our communities. It's time to prioritize the health of our communities and end health disparities that persist. People in Rhode Island are struggling, and they need a stronger support system to rise out of poverty and overcome health disparities. Although Providence is among one of the worst cities for people with disabilities to live, with 5 times more people living in poverty than the best cities, I believe that we can improve everyone's quality of life. Through the Agriculture Jobs Bureau Act, people will be able to have access to healthy food that is locally and sustainably grown so that they can nourish their bodies. This bill will also create jobs and combat climate change, which is what we need for Rhode Islanders to have a better future. Using regenerative agriculture and urban farming models, it is possible to create jobs for underrepresented people that pay competitive wages while improving the supply of healthy food in malnourished communities. Regardless of who we are or our abilities, Rhode Islanders can care for each other. Together we can work to make our state into a better place to live. We can be there for each other, and together we can rise up. Sincerely, Timothy Riker.
Thank you, Timothy, for providing that testimony to the committee tonight. And our next witness, I believe we should have Ariana on with us. I apologize if I mispronounced your name. If you could introduce yourself to the committee and let us know what bill you're testifying on and if you're testifying on behalf of an organization, and you can go ahead with your testimony.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Hello, my name is Ariana. I'm here on behalf of myself in support of the Food Justice Bill 68. And as a 16-year-old, I have a boatload of things I wish I could be doing with my time right now, but I am here because this bill is one of the most important I have ever seen. Due to my dad's disabilities and addictions, the only place I would hire him was McDonald's. While he was homeless, my dad was forced to live off an unsurvivable minimum wage, and because of that, his weekly food budget was minimal, to say the least. For over a year, my dad lived off of ramen and Chef Boyardee beefaroni. But what truly saved my dad was an iPhone app. This app gave him coupons to local fast food restaurants and convenience stores. The state failed him so badly that the only reason he's still standing is because of an app on his phone. You can brush him off as much as he wants, tell me that he did not work hard enough, that there are state programs that could have helped him. He tried, and he found no salvation. There's a funny coincidence because of the fact that I live in Patuxent Village, one of the richest and whitest neighborhoods in Cranston, and the fact that there's a farmer's market 1 street away from my home every weekend. What I ask after hearing all the testimonies tonight, at what age did you and the rest of the senators lose your compassion? At what age did you decide that politics is more important than the lives of the people in your districts? If you truly supported us, you would not mindlessly yell at us when we are trying to tell our stories. We are not threatening your seats for fun. We are doing it because we are scared, petrified to be exact. And you are showing no empathy. If you truly support all of us, then start showing that support that I so much desire. It is not our job in our time of fear to fit into this neat and kind box that you guys have been asking us to fit into. Because newsflash, we tried the kind way. We sent countless emails and calls, and many of you guys did not respond to us, and if you did, you brushed us off. It is time for you to decide if you support us and your constituents, or I will personally make sure you lose your seat if it is the last thing I do. Senator Oyer, stop putting your nose up to our pain. I can see you, and it is not okay. Thank you for your time, and I hope you have a great rest of your night.
Thank you for your testimony. I believe we should have Thomas Landry on with us, and if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself for the committee and let us know what bill you're testifying on, and also if you are representing an organization, you can go ahead with your testimony.
Good evening, and happy St. Patrick's Day. My name is Thomas M. Landry, and I am testifying on behalf of myself in support of 2021 S468. I live at 40 Ambrose Street in North Providence with my wife and 2 children. I acknowledge all members of this committee, and I thank Senators Anderson, DeMario, Tallman, and others for its introduction. My wife is currently recovering from surgery. My son is growing up with asthma, and my daughter is battling chronic, debilitating migraine headaches. Every weekday morning, I drive up Route 146 North from North Providence to Route 99 to Route 126 North to Woonsocket. I drive past the stench of the water treatment plant and the filthy black smoke from the municipal incinerator. I work as a healthcare clinician and educator in Woonsocket Public Schools. The community in which I work is a food desert with many families who consume processed foods from dollar stores rather than fresh food from local gardens, farms, fisheries, and markets. Passage of 468 is essential. In 2020, I volunteered on several successful campaigns for new state legislators. I knocked on doors, donated money, and raised money to support good candidates who pledged to support Rhode Island families and the environment in which we live. In 2022, I will continue to work hard for leaders who work hard for us. And I will again work hard for good candidates in North Providence and around Rhode Island who challenge incumbents in primary and general elections when the incumbents don't support important legislation like 468, starting in this committee and continuing in the full Senate. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I believe we should have Jamie with us. And Jamie, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to the committee, and if you're working with any organization, as well as what bill you're testifying on, and you can go ahead with your testimony.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Jamie Buck. I'm a resident of East Providence, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself in support of Bill 468. I have spent my academic and professional life up until this point trying to quote-unquote work within the system to create meaningful environmental change from the inside, and I am tired of it. I work in renewable energy. During my time working in Rhode Island, I've worked in 3 different capacities: at a research institution, a state government office, and a utility company. In each of these positions, I've watched high-minded, idealistic rhetoric become diluted and eroded down to nearly nothing. It's been infuriating, and frankly, it is the direct result of passive politics and weak political will. This pandemic has highlighted the unbelievable gap that privilege creates. Struggling individuals, many of whom are Black, Indigenous, and people of color, are people you call quote-unquote heroes all last year and yet did little to protect in a meaningful way. They are on the front line, and they are the casualties of food insecurity, housing insecurity, and negative health consequences due to environmental hazards. This bill is comprehensive, well thought out, and deliberately proactive, and most importantly, it's a solution. It actually protects the heroes of this past year. Food justice, green housing, and environmental justice are issues that should not be controversial, but somehow they are. You may have already decided that your predetermined conclusions are better than anything that we have to say, but if you only speak in platitudes and then neglect to take action and champion these causes, especially when we've laid out this path for you, then you are acting hypocritically. The time for incremental change has long since passed. We are your constituents. These are our lives. Our tax dollars should pay for our health and our well-being. We want this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I believe we should now be joined by Alana, and I apologize if I got your name wrong. If you can introduce yourself to the committee, let us know what bill you're testifying on, and if you're working with an organization tonight. You can go ahead.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, hi everyone. My name's Ilana. I'm testifying on behalf of myself in favor of Bill 468, in support of it, and I live in Providence. So I wanted to tell you all about, in 2017 and 2018, I was a volunteer and then an intern at the Southside Community Land Trust in their development department, which does fundraising. And I think earlier on tonight, Margaret DeVos also testified, and as she made clear, the Land Trust does community gardens, and so when I was working there, and especially at their teaching farm, City Farm, it really gave me a very impactful glimpse of the kind of local and regenerative food system we could have here in Rhode Island. And one of the very first things I learned when I started helping out in the development department was that more than half of the funding for the Land Trust comes from individual donors. And so, like, this is, I think the way that a lot of nonprofits work in this country. It's not, specific to the Land Trust or anything, but that was a really impactful moment when I learned how it was funded, because it's just relevant, I think, to note that how the Land Trust operates is not the same as a comprehensive statewide model that we need for local community agriculture. So the reason I want to point this out is because we can't wait for people with more wealth to just find it in their hearts to donate. That can be like part of how like nonprofits as one part of a larger ecosystem of local food works, but that can't be all of it. We cannot leave it simply to the nonprofits whose funding structure depends so heavily on the generosity of many people who themselves are not experiencing food insecurity, right? That's like yeah. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is that this bill, 468, this bill would provide that funding, and it wouldn't leave it to the generosity of people who decide that, like, they have it in their hearts to donate. I also wanted to point out that this bill is centering community control. I think it's not a coincidence that the structure of community control of land and food, these ideas inherent to that of hearing people out, of the right to shift power balances and to change who is in leadership, echoes another institution that is relevant tonight, which is the State House. So, Senator Oyer, I wanted to talk to you now. I spent the summer of 2020 spending 12 hours a day working to get senators and representatives in the Rhode Island State Legislature out of office who didn't support the climate action that we urgently need. And I want to tell you and everyone else on this committee that if you don't pass the legislation like this bill that we urgently need for our communities, for our safety, for our health, for each other, then I'm ready to spend the same amount of hours and more knocking on doors again in 2022 and voting you and everyone else out of office. So I think that's it for me. Thank you for your time, and do you have any questions?
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
I believe we have Emma with us. Emma, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to the committee and let us know what bill you're testifying on, and if you're working with an organization tonight, you can go ahead.
Thank you so much. My name is Emma Vennard, and I'm here to testify on behalf of myself in support of Senate Bill 468. I'm 19 years old, and I spend a lot of time thinking about what the future is going to look like for my generation, specifically what agriculture and food are going to look like. Questions that everyone my age has to think about, like, will it be okay for me to have children, are deeply connected to questions like, will there be enough food in coming years? It is really scary for me to think about a future in which food is not accessible. But as we've heard today, many people do not have access to healthy food today. I'm an environmental studies student. I just took a big midterm on agriculture, and if I've learned anything, it is that food is a crucial health issue as well as a climate issue. When the agriculture industry operates the way it does right now, there are pesticides in our food that can have severe health impacts for farm workers as well as for consumers. And when fertilizers are used liberally and foods transported long distances, there are greenhouse gas emissions. In fact, 15% of all greenhouse gas emissions come from food production. This bill will lead to growing local healthy food here in Rhode Island while creating jobs and giving people vouchers so that they can have food that is healthy for them while simultaneously combating the climate crisis. Senator Oyer, I know you are the chair of this committee and you claim to be committed to the environment. Supporting this bill is what commitment to the environment truly looks like. I'm part of Sunrise and have spent the past month canvassing, distributing pamphlets, and organizing with the Renew Rhode Island Act. Come 2022, I will continue to canvass and organize with Sunrise every week to elect a representative who supports a Green New Deal for Rhode Island and cares about my generation's future. I will bring my friends, I will bring my classmates, and I will fundraise until there is change. Thank you so much for your time, especially to those who are already in support of this crucial bill.
Thank you for your testimony. I believe we have Robert with us. Robert, if you would like to introduce yourself to the committee and let us know what bill you're testifying on, as well as if you're working with an organization tonight. You can go ahead with your testimony.
Thank you. I'm Robert Travis from Wakefield. I'm speaking in support of the food bill, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself. I'm grateful that you're moving forward with this important legislation while we face with climate change the greatest global crisis humanity has ever known. We've started to see some of the problems of our habit of transporting our food over long distances from single food-producing states. When I go to the grocery store, I don't like to not being sure if it is safe to eat the lettuce because I haven't read the news that day to check if the water the produce was washed in was clean when it was being prepared for shipment from California. I don't like knowing that the salad that I'm eating contributed to the rise of sea levels in my community because it was shipped thousands of miles in diesel-belching trucks because we couldn't grow the produce in our own state. Thanks to the agricultural work of the University of Rhode Island, this year I've enjoyed for the first time in my life subscribing to and eating from a winter community-supported agriculture program through Brandon Family Farm. This farm used new farming methods to provide many people fresh greens and vegetables through the winter, grown right here in our state. With this food bill, we can fund the development of more locally grown food that will be healthy and life-sustaining for more Rhode Islanders, making us less dependent on food shipped from California and Florida. We can nurture our land and make it serve the people of Rhode Island rather than exploiting it for non-life-giving activities. To conclude, I want to share with you from Wendell Berry. Let me outline briefly as I can what seem to me the characteristics of opposite kinds of mind. I conceive a strip miner to be a model exploiter, and as a model nurturer, I take the old-fashioned idea of a farmer. The exploiter is a specialist, an expert. The nurturer is not. The standard of the exploiter is efficiency. The standard of the nurturer is care. The exploiter's goal is money, profit. The nurturer's goal is health, his land's health, his own, his family's, his communities, his country's. Whereas the exploiter asks of a piece of land only how much and how quickly it can be made to produce, the nurturer asks a question that is much more complex and difficult. What is its carrying capacity? That is, how much can be taken from it without diminishing it? What can it produce dependably for an indefinite time? The exploiter wishes to earn as much as possible by as little work as possible. The nurturer expects, certainly, to have a decent living from his work, but his characteristic wish is to work as well as possible. The exploiter thinks in terms of numbers, quantities, hard facts. The nurturer in terms of character, condition, quality, kind. Let us be nurturers of the land and people of Rhode Island and provide locally grown food for our people. Passing the food bill will make you nurturers. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I believe we have Heather with us.
Hi.
Hi, Heather. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to the committee and let us know what bill you're testifying on, and if you're testifying on behalf of a group, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you. My name is Heather Thibodeau. I'm not testifying on behalf of a group. I want to thank you for the opportunity to very briefly speak in support of the food bill. And I also want to thank you for facilitating this exhausting but important democratic process, because I know you guys work really hard and it's been long, long days. I will be very brief. In my 60 years, I've lived through the impact of climate change and personally witnessed the growing destruction to biodiversity, wildlife, forest, agriculture, and the economy. As a URI Master Gardener graduate and a land trust volunteer, I believe Rhode Island has the knowledge and resources to develop local and sustainable agricultural practices. What we need is the collective political will to make it happen. I urge you to take the courageous and necessary step to fight climate change by supporting passage of these bills. Thank you so much for your time and your consideration. I really appreciate what you guys are doing.
Thank you for your testimony and for your perspective. We appreciate it. I believe we should have Megan with us. Megan, if you could go ahead and introduce yourself to the committee, let us know what bill you're testifying on, and if you're testifying on behalf of a group, you can go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Meg Lynch, and I'm testifying in support of Senate Bill 468 as a citizen of Cranston, Rhode Island. I'll be relatively brief. Every Rhode Island citizen deserves to live fully, safely, and with dignity. This cannot exclude people based on where they live, what they look like, or how much money they make. I often picture a better world, one without housing and food insecurity, one where the citizens of our state can thrive rather than just survive, one where the agricultural system does not exploit workers or further endanger our environment, which is already in deep trouble. If you all truly do serve the people, then I'm glad you're listening here tonight to what we have to say. I also just want to add, and I appreciate you all for hearing me out, I think the reason earlier people have been mentioning senators by name is not to indicate a lack of faith in you all, in our legislators, but to let you all know how seriously the community is taking these issues and how much we really, really care about them, as you can tell from all the testimonies that we've been hearing. So don't take it as a personal attack or anything like that. Just show us that you mean it and that you support us and that you'll fight for this. Don't let this die in committee, because I know there are many of us throughout the state, as we've made clear, who will make sure the community knows who does and does not support this legislation. We're not trying to threaten you. We just believe in democracy, me and my fellow Rhode Islanders, and we want to use our voices these 2 minutes to create meaningful change if we can, in the event that our representatives do not. So we just want to let you know we're constituents who are paying attention, and again, just think of it as a call to action. Just show us that you mean it, and let's move forward to a better future together. Thank you.
Thank you. We should be joined now by Evelyn. Evelyn, if you can go ahead and introduce yourself to the committee and let us know if you're working with and testifying on behalf of a group tonight, and also what bill you're testifying on. You can go ahead with your testimony.
Hi, my name is Evelyn Dumont. I'm testifying on behalf of myself, and I'm here to testify for the Rescue Rhode Island Act, specifically Bill 468. And I just want to take a moment and reflect on how many people have showed up to speak about what is important to them. Do you think the reason why so many people have showed up to speak tonight and these other nights is because we have nothing better to do? No, it's because we are scared. And you should be too. We are scared because we don't see leadership making the decisions to protect our community. Growing up, I was lucky. I had mentors who connected me to the local farming community. But if my two farming mentors, Deb and Ricky, decided not to move to the middle of nowhere and teach a bunch of poor and working class kids how to grow food, then I would not have had access to fresh local food, or not known how to get access, or how to start growing food myself, or about the value of growing food together in a community. It was hard to gain this knowledge. We were surrounded by farmland, and yet our food was from cans shipped halfway across the country. We'll never forget one kid did not know that lettuce was supposed to be green. I know you know that this disproportionately affects Black and brown communities, that these moments are common, that most of Rhode Island's food gets shipped from out-of-state factory farms, that waste lagoons, I'll say that again, waste lagoons, caused by factory farming gets into our water. You see, it's not just about food. There are two things I learned as a kid that still remain true. You are what you eat, and you are what you stand for. So I'm asking you, what do you stand for? Thank you.
Thank you. I believe we're joined by Alex. Alex, if you want to introduce yourself to the committee, let us know if you're representing any group and what bill you're testifying on, and you can go ahead with your testimony.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the committee. My name is Alex Kithis, and I'm testifying on behalf of myself in strong support of S468, the Agriculture Bureau Act, the Rescue Rhode Island Food Bill. I've lived in Woonsocket my entire life. It's an economically depressed former mill city and a wonderful, diverse, working-class community. And it's essentially a massive food desert. I can't emphasize just how much our community would benefit from better access to healthy, fresh, local food and from more control over our local food production. That was one of the reasons that I started a campaign to get backyard chicken keeping legalized in Woonsocket back in 2013 while I was an undergrad. That seems like it should be a pretty simple task, right? But unfortunately it was not. It ended up taking over 2 years, and in the process, some city officials expressed some ridiculous anti-science viewpoints and aimed a lot of ugly racism and xenophobia at members of our community. The ordinance finally passed narrowly and in a pretty crappy form that requires a permitting fee of a few $100s and therefore locks out a lot of folks in our community from a basic form of urban agriculture that cultures around the world have done for thousands of years. This experience, the experience of dealing with out-of-touch and blatantly hateful municipal officials, some of them not even elected, the experience of spending years to get a simple law passed just to allow your community to grow and raise food, raise local sustainable food in their own backyards, the experience of having to choose whether to spend hundreds of dollars on a permit for something that ultimately may not even save you that much money. This experience isn't one that I would wish on anyone. So our state needs to make sure that this doesn't keep happening. We need to give communities, actual communities, with democratic power held in community land trusts, the right to grow food and control what they grow. And this can't wait. We're in the midst of a climate crisis, as so many other callers have already said, a global catastrophe that's already harming frontline communities and threatens an unlivable planet and human extinction within my lifetime. An important part of solving that crisis is to move to local sustainable food production, not only because of the decarbonization of agriculture that we need to do, but because it creates community resilience and eliminates food deserts, factors that will allow our communities to weather the horrible effects of the climate crisis with less suffering. And at this point, that's something we need to be considering. This bill gives us the opportunity to address the problems of carbon emissions and food inaccessibility simultaneously, and for that reason, it should be a no-brainer to pass out of committee. I've knocked upwards of 10,000 doors over the past few years in support not only of candidates in Woonsocket, but real Democrats around the state. I'm so thankful for the senators that are already signed onto this bill. And for those of you who ultimately choose not to support this legislation, so desperately needed by our state, by your constituents, I'm committing my time and money to candidates that challenge you for your seats in 2022. Thank you, and have a good night.
Thank you for your testimony. I believe now we are joined by Kathy. Kathy, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to the committee and let us know what bill you're testifying on and if you're testifying on behalf of a group.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Kathy Solomon. I live in Charlestown, and I'm here on behalf of myself. I'm in support of Bill 468, as well as the companion bills known collectively as the Renew Rhode Island Act. Tonight, I'm calling in support of the Agricultural Bureau Act. I live in a beautiful town within walking distance of Newport Pond. I have enough land to have a small garden. There are several farmers markets and farm stands close by. On the surface, it appears to be an idyllic place, but in reality, there is a significant food insecurity in South County. This is not just an urban problem. Average families are paying so much for housing that they have a hard time affording good, nutritious food, and this has all been exacerbated by the coronavirus pandemic. Building a new food system that will pay workers fair wages to produce local food in ecologically sustainable ways will be a positive step for Rhode Island. Whoever thought it was a good idea to put chemicals in our food in the first place? Mega growers who don't even look in the eyes of the customers buying their food. That's who. Providing subsidies to local farms that adopt or continue to use regenerative agricultural practices will help to reduce the use of poisonous chemical pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizer in our land. It will provide jobs for those in the agricultural field. The creation of community land trusts will allow neighborhoods to grow their own food. The net effect will be to bring good, nutritious food closer to the Rhode Island consumer. Whether urban, suburban, or rural, it cannot be ignored that 90% of our food comes to us from out of state. So encouraging more of our food to be grown within our state will be good for Rhode Islanders. It will reduce the amount of food shipped to the state through highly carbon-intensive supply chains, thus having a positive effect on climate change. Healthy, nutritious food should not be a luxury. It should be a right. And the time is now to support a new food system in Rhode Island. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. And we should have Ben on the line with us. Ben, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to the committee, let us know if you're testifying on behalf of an organization and what bill you're testifying for. You can go ahead with your testimony.
Thank you. Good evening. Thanks for having me. My name is Ben Torpy, and I'd like to speak on behalf of myself in support of Senate Bill S468. I'm a vegetable farmer renting land in western Cranston, and I'm a resident of South Providence. If enacted, this bill will help my rural neighbors to be able to afford to hold on to their land and to retain skilled workers while paying them fairly. It would help my neighbors in the city as well by increasing the supply of local affordable produce in low-income neighborhoods and allowing more people to grow more of their own food. It would go a long way to helping create a more just, healthy, and beautiful state while also helping to curb carbon emissions and preserve open space. What's not to like? Like Chief Ayers said earlier, the bill would expand on work that DEM's been doing for years. I appreciate DEM's current and ongoing support for local farms and Chief Ayers' long-standing leadership. Let's fully fund that work and expand it as outlined in this bold and creative bill. I rent land at Urban Edge Farm, a DEM property currently managed by the Southside Community Land Trust, where I also work part-time assisting immigrant and refugee farmers to start and grow small farm businesses. When given the opportunity to access land, these farmers work incredibly hard to feed themselves, their communities, combating food insecurity, and bringing delicious food and I'd say even joy to people across Rhode Island. The project currently hosts 15 small farms, and we have a growing wait list of farmers looking for land. I know from firsthand experience that public support can change farmer behavior for the benefit of the community. During COVID, I received some emergency federal funds to support my business. It allowed me financial leeway to donate more food to community organizations such as the George Wiley Center and to sell food at a discount to my low-income neighbors. My farming neighbors did the same. Urban Edge Farm is a model similar to what Bill 468 would support, and from personal experience I could say that this model works. When given power and resources, farmers can and do work together to feed our communities. I invite any of the senators to come visit Urban Edge Farm. I'll show you around. And reach out to the Southside Community Land Trust to see what the future of publicly supported regenerative farming can look like and how this model can be scaled to help feed more people in our state. Let's invest in our small farmers. Let's invest in the health, well-being, and power of low-income communities of color. Thank you to everyone who's here to support this bill.
Thank you for your testimony. And with that, we have reached the end of the witness list for this evening. And I encourage all of those callers, as well as anyone who has been watching, to submit written testimony and work with the sponsors of the legislation that was before the committee tonight. And with that, I also do want to say that there were a number of witnesses on the witness list that we did call multiple times. And so if you did not get a call, we do apologize. But the calls did come through multiple times, and there were people who were either not ready to testify and refused to testify, or also didn't answer the phone. So we definitely had to keep this evening moving to make sure that we could get everyone heard this evening. So with that being said, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Senator Rogers' motion to adjourn, second unanimous by the entire committee, and we are adjourned. Thank you.